An MVP is an essential component of the lean startup methodology. The concept of MVP was introduced by Frank Robinson back in 2001. However, even after more than 2 decades since the term was introduced, there's still a lot of confusion about what this term actually is, and even more on how to apply this concept in practice. There are different interpretations of the term MVP. A common definition is the following. An MVP is an initial version of a new product introduced to the market that has a basic set of features and has a high value to capture the attention of the customers. But is MVP actually a product? This is often a debate. Some people believe that an MVP is only a prototype. It should never be a real product. For others, an MVP is the minimal version of a real live product. Before we talk about the definition, let's first deep dive into the idea behind the MVP concept. To build a product, we need to have users of that product. A user should have a need or a desire, for example, a problem to solve or a desire to become better in something. We build a product in order to satisfy this need of the users. A product, in simple words, is a vehicle that can move the users from the current state to their desired state. But the idea we have for a product relies on a lot of hypotheses. This is why we don't build the complete product in one go. We build it in iterations, as small as possible loops, and within each iteration, we do validation with our users. During this process, we validate the hypotheses, starting with the riskiest one. The goal of this approach is failing fast. If the initial idea is not valid, it's better to fail fast before making a big investment. And this is the meaning of the MVP concept, working in small iterations and frequent validation with users. To conduct this validation, we need something tangible, something we can show to the user and get feedback. And this is what we call an MVP. Is the MVP a working product? Not necessarily. Depending on which stage of the process we're in, we would need to validate something differently. For example, when validating the idea, we could use a landing page MVP. Or to validate the design and user experience, we could use a wireframe MVP or a mock-up MVP. And at some point during this journey, we would have the minimum viable version of a live product that can be sold to users. Having a live version of this product does not mean we stop there. Instead, we should iterate, improve, add more features, and gradually increase the value to the users. With every iteration during this process, the feedback we get from users allows for changing direction, correcting the course, and getting closer to the product market fit. Now let's go back to the definition of MVP. The P in MVP could refer to a product, but it can be a prototype, or concept of the product, or another representation of the product idea. Sometimes to avoid confusion, the MVP versions that are not live products are referred to as MVP tests, or even minimum viable prototypes, while the term MVP is reserved for the live product. I would not strongly advocate which terminology is best to use. Choose the one that you feel comfortable with. But no matter what term you use, don't forget to apply frequent validation. Not only after the working product is ready, but during the whole journey, starting from having the idea and onwards. The M in MVP stands for minimum. The MVP should be basic, should have just enough features to capture the attention of the users. You don't want to spend a big investment to build a complex product without validating your assumption. And the V in MVP stands for viable. An MVP has to show that it can provide high value to the user. Your new product, and a brand new business in the case of a startup company, is likely competing already with existing products. So your product needs to have something really highly valuable, so that it can attract the users to choose your product among others. This is an illustrative example of what a good versus bad MVP development is. Say we are building a product to help customers commute from one place to another. We don't start with building one wheel only and then two wheels, and then the whole car, because the first two versions do not provide any value to the customer. What we want to do instead is start with a skateboard, for example, then a bike, and then ultimately a car. A common question that entrepreneurs have is, do we use the term MVP for a new product? So when is it not minimum anymore? I don't think there's a clear boundary between MVP and a product. I'd say that's the moment when you feel confident about the product, when it resonates well with the market in a way that you have found the product market fit. Now let's summarize the key benefits of the MVP concept. Cost-efficient development is obviously one of the key benefits, because an MVP is about being minimal and avoiding investing in expensive products. Another business benefit is minimized risk of failure because of the frequent validation with users. Another business benefit is building a user base pretty early because during the validation process you talk to users who will potentially become paying customers. And the last one is clear product vision. The minimum nature of the MVP allows for keeping a clear focus on what the users need, which would bring more clarity in your vision. The benefits of an MVP development do not only apply to startups, but they do apply to any kind of organization. Whenever you introduce a new product to the market, or even a new feature, you should aim to go through the lean startup process, which means starting with a small MVP, validating it, and step by step getting closer to the product market fit.